I just had this realization my life was handed to me on a silver platter. And I did my research on the connection between gratitude and generosity and service. And that piece of paper just thrown on my desk was like, oh my goodness, that's what I got to do. And I had been searching for it like relentlessly for 5 years, and it just appeared out of nowhere. We are totally wired that way. I call it the unrelenting force. Our mindset, it is constantly trying to bring us down to that idea of surviving to thriving, take us from a thriving mindset where life is a playground to a surviving mindset where life is a battleground. Yeah, let's start with the individual. People who are grateful, more likely to achieve important life goals. They're happier, have higher levels of life satisfaction. They're more generous. They sleep more soundly. They exercise more regularly. They have more social connections. Gratitude will insulate you from aging, hopelessness, depression. A couple studies point to longevity, longer lives because of being grateful. And you become very intentional. And the more you work at this, it doesn't just happen once and you're done. This is a practice that you want to cultivate and continue to use in your life. Because when you do that, you will start noticing the good amongst chaos. And if you were to pick one, the biggest challenge that you got through, you can ask yourself, what was I grateful for? Where's the good in the challenge? Who did I become? What did I learn? What did I learn about myself? Can I actually be grateful for that? Like maybe not the situation, but in this situation, here's what I'm grateful for. And when we do that with a situation in the past, we can take that learning and use it for something that we're dealing with today. And anyone can do that. And it is a very, very powerful way to reframe how life is unfolding.
Welcome back to Be on the Keynote. I am beyond excited today to be speaking to Steve Foran, who is a CEO, keynote speaker, and author. Welcome, Steve. It is so great to have you on the podcast.
It is great to be here with you, Carmen. Look forward to our conversation.
I think we're going to have a very fun conversation today, especially because you're all about gratitude at work, which I love and I have certainly not heard of before, especially in the corporate space. And I spent 18 and a half years of my career in leadership in corporate spaces. So I'm very intrigued and excited to dive in. But before we get to where you are today, I always love to know who is the person behind the speaker. Who was Steve when you were a little boy, and did you ever imagine that you would be speaking on the world stage? So tell us a little bit about you growing up and what shaped you to become who you are today.
I'm the oldest of five. I grew up on the east coast of Canada in a city called Halifax, Nova Scotia. I've lived almost my entire life there. Um, I share, Bruce Springsteen and we share something in common. We
Yes.
both live less than a mile from where we grew up. I look out,
I love that you know that.
I know, yeah. I look out my living room window and like probably a mile, kilometer as the crow flies, I can see the elementary school that I went to. And the subdivision that I lived in is just behind it. We're on a hill looking over the city. So, I just am wired to the East Coast. When I was in university, I took a summer job halfway across the country and just outside Toronto. And those 4 months made me realize how much I loved living in Nova Scotia. So I've spent my whole life here. I oldest of five. So as the oldest of five, I would say, I grew up with I'd say a heightened sense of responsibility, kind of feeling like you were responsible for a lot of things.
Yes.
I would say it made me judgmental. I would say that.
Okay.
Okay, because you kind of it would make me judge.
I'm an oldest sibling. I'm an oldest of three, not five.
Okay.
But yeah, I kind
So
of get what you're talking
you know what I
about.
mean? It's kind of like, and then the younger
Yes.
ones, they kind of, well, like, how come
They get away
do we
with
have
everything.
two standards here of raising kids? For me, everything. But on the flip side, if you look at the family wedding albums, there are tons of photographs of young Stephen. I don't think there's any of Greg, like my youngest brother. I was, I kind of say like I grew up, a fat kid. I was chubby. I wore the husky pants. I played sports that took advantage of my natural size. You look at me today, you wouldn't think that.
No.
No, because I
What sports in Canada take
I'll give you one guess.
advantage of the
I'll give
natural
you
side?
one guess.
Oh, something to do with ice.
Yes, it is. Ice hockey,
Ice
right? So
hockey?
ice hockey was the thing that I loved. I remember when I was in like grade two in the basement of our house, I'd had skates on, like, and the skating on the carpet, replaying over and over again in my head. The game seven of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and the puck's in Foran's hands, and he shoots and he scores, and just over and over and over replaying that, like just as a kid, dreaming, having fun. I married my first girlfriend this summer. We just celebrated
Oh,
40 years together. We have two kids, so I'm
wow.
a dad. I'm a brother, like the oldest of five, a brother. I've got three brothers and a sister. Lynn and I, two kids, Nick and Steph. They each have two kids, and so
Okay.
Monday nights are sleepovers for Max and Maisie. Wednesday nights sleepover. I don't know if anyone wants to hear this. Sleepovers for Liam and Sophie, and
It's so cute.
one of the most proudest things in my life is my grandpa name, which is Bump. So
Bump.
I'll
Bump
turn it
it
back to
out.
you and you can redirect. This is your audience and your podcast. So,
No. We need to know where Bump came from before we redirect.
okay. Okay. So, Linda, my wife, she wanted to be Gammy. Gammy. Max couldn't pronounce G's. So Gammy became me, which is just very confusing. So his grandmother, he calls her me, and all the other kids call her me. I was supposed to be Gump, and Max can't pronounce G's, so I became Bump.
So cute. I love that. Great story. Now let's go back. So you're ice skating on the carpet in your basement and you're basically commentating your own match. And you're a speaker today. So, do you remember, were you extroverted or introverted as a child? Do you remember the first time you ever spoke in front of groups of people?
Yeah, I do. I would more of an introvert. I like always very positive, but introvert. The first time I spoke was in grade nine at our graduation. I don't know if we called us the class valedictorian. I still have the one-page speech that I wrote, and that was the first time I spoke, and I didn't enjoy it. I didn't want to do it. Mr. McElhenney, he really encouraged me through it, and then the second opportunity I had to speak was 2 years later in grade 11 in history class. And in history class, the teacher said at the beginning of the year, you and every one of your classmates are going to get to teach one class. And a big part of your mark is going to be based on how you teach history for your one class for the semester. My turn came. Stephen, it's your turn to teach. And I said, I'm not doing it. I don't have anything.
Okay.
And she's,
How did the
what,
teacher react to
the,
that?
like, no, everyone before me, they all taught their class. The day, the class before, the teacher said, Stephen, you're going to be ready to teach the class. And I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I was too cool to stand up and teach. I was like one of those, man, it's amazing that the road that I traveled, it could have gone either way. I was just too cool. I'm not doing that. You're going to fail the term. You could fail the course if you don't teach. Whatever. I don't care. I'm not standing up and teaching. And I don't remember what happened after that. That day, the teacher taught something. I don't remember what happened. I did get an F that term. I passed the course for the year, just barely though, right? And so after that, if you would have told me that I would be speaking, no. And if I can give you one more story, this would be the third time I had the opportunity to speak. It was the summer that I went halfway across the country to just outside Toronto. I took a summer job. I was in electrical engineering, General Motors, the car manufacturer. I got hired for a summer job. And on the first day, we're in the head office General Motors Canada in the boardroom, and there was, I don't know, 10 or 15 of us from across the country. And the fellow who's leading the thing said, okay, you're going to be going here, here, here. And on the last day, you are all going to meet, because they had a bunch of different plants. You will come together again as a group, and each of you are going to present your summer project to the rest of you and the senior management team at General Motors.
No pressure.
I was sitting there thinking, I don't think I could say no to this the way I did to the grade 9 Mrs. Hopkins, right? Anyhow,
And did you get through that one okay? Do
I
you
got
remember?
I got through it, and it was kind of like well, nervous, but just, and then when you're done, just the feeling of exhilaration. And I didn't, even then, I didn't really know that that's what I would want to do or would do in my work.
Mm. I think it's always interesting that it doesn't actually matter if you're introverted or extroverted, you can still end up being a speaker. And for me, I loved acting growing up. I was involved in theatre from a very young age, but was so shy, such a shy child. But I loved it on stage. It was a different I was a different person up there, and to be honest, I'd rather speak on stage in front of thousands of people than be at a networking event and have to do one-to-one conversations with a whole lot of strangers. So I think it's always very interesting how you end up on the stage speaking. Okay, so you said you're an electrical engineer, is that
Yes,
right?
correct.
At General Motors. So tell us about that. How did you get into that, and how did that lead to you becoming an entrepreneur
Yeah.
at some point in
Yeah.
time?
So, like, again, I think back to the oldest of five. I think I was somehow conditioned that I was going to be going to university, because no one in our family had up to that point. When I went to school, I really didn't have to study that much. It was, so it was like I was going to take something that most people would consider difficult. And so, and I enjoyed sciences, so I went into engineering. I worked the summer at General Motors, and I was like, no, I'm not going to stay there. When I graduated, I started working at the local electric utility for the province. And electric utilities are just amazing places to work as an engineer, right? It just, everything is, there's engineers all over the place. So you had lots of role models, there was lots of places to go and do. It was just like the land of plenty. And I very quickly found myself doing presentations all the time, like at least 2, 3, 4. It depends. Sometimes maybe no. On if I was doing a safety tour, I might do 10 or 15 presentations, same one, in the course of a week. Like as you go from office to office, from just doing this, it might be 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever the case is. And what I did notice after a couple of years of doing that, after I finished those, whatever it was that I was teaching or speaking and training on, I just felt such a huge sense of like a sense of accomplishment, and that was, I think, where I kind of was like, this, I really enjoy this. And I'd been to a couple conferences where you see people speak, and like world-class speakers like Les Brown and Zig Ziglar and Gerald Coffey, and like people who just, you go, keep going, keep going, right?
I love that. Yes, never stop. That's the kind of speaker you want to be when the audience just never wants your talk to be over because they're loving it so much. One of my clients that I'm working with, he's actually in Miami, Florida, and his idol is Zig Ziglar. He constantly is talking to me about Zig Ziglar. What a great training ground, though, for speaking and realizing the power of speaking while you were there too.
Yeah.
And so, did your career continue with the electrical engineering? Did you move up in GE or move into other companies?
Yeah.
How did you end up
So
moving into running your own business?
probably technical at the power company, 8 years, and then 5 years more on business development and financial administration and stuff. So engineer, you've got a lot of flexibility. So I was there for 13 years, and then I switched companies, went to a college that we had for one of the post-secondary colleges, and we were doing training internationally for organizations in the energy sector. And so I was kind of like business development and sales and out there on it. And while this is going on, I guess my second year out of school, I started taking my MBA because I wanted to do something. Someone told me when I first started, engineers are a dime a dozen in the power company. You got to do something to stand out. You should take an MBA. And so I did. Um, Anyhow, I did it part time. This is a 2-year program. I quit in the middle of it for 8 years and I dragged it out. It took me 18 years to finish it. But when I went back,
Oh, wow.
yeah, my kids were in high school. Like I'd come home and they'd be, do you get your homework done? Homework? How's the MBA going, Dad? And maybe just fired back in your face.
I
So
love it.
anyhow, so when I was working at the college. I decide, Linda, she was like, my wife, you got to go back and finish that. And I said, I will go back and finish it. And I will find something when I'm doing my MBA that I can start on my own. And I didn't know whether it was going to be speaking or not. I had no idea what it was going to be. And as I came to the end of it, someone put this thing on my desk. It was for a job, and I really wasn't interested in the job. But this is where the idea of speaking and gratitude and how it crystallized. And gratitude because I just had this realization my life was handed to me on a silver platter, which happened late in my MBA because I got to do research on it. And I did my research on connection between gratitude and generosity and service. And it's like, and that piece of paper just thrown on my desk was like, oh my goodness, that's what I got to do. And I had been searching for it like relentlessly for 5 years, and it just appeared out of nowhere.
Wow. And was that from one of your lecturers?
It was, no, it was a colleague. It was a colleague
Ah, okay.
who sat in the office next to me. And he said, you should apply for this job.
And do you remember what the job was?
Yeah, it was the vice president of at a really large charity. And I did apply for it. I didn't get an interview, but I was the person who got that job used me as a reference, and I was a reference for this person who got the job.
Oh,
How's
wow.
that?
Well, you obviously were not meant to get an
I
interview
was
and not
totally
meant to
not
get
meant
that
for.
job.
And you know what?
Yes.
It wasn't the job, but I did apply for it. But that was the genesis for the idea. Yeah.
That's amazing. Isn't it amazing how these little moments in your life happen and it just catapults you into a certain direction that was meant to be?
It totally does. And I kind of thought it was going to be around fundraising and like 20 years ago. It's not around that. It's around just gratitude as a foundational tool for personal well-being and personal success.
All right. Well, we need to dive into this. So, how long? Okay. So, the piece of paper landed on your desk. How long until you actually started this
Okay,
business?
I wish I could say it was 2 weeks. It was probably a couple of years because I'm kind of slow. I had to get the research done. I dragged my butt on it. I was probably 2.5 years doing the research, which should have been done in 6 months. Um,
And that was still as part of doing the
or in the
MBA,
MBA,
that
like I go
research.
into
Yes.
Kathy, my faculty advisor. I said, Kathy, I need you to kind of just get me like, I need you to hold me accountable. And she looks at me and says, I don't hold anyone accountable. If you want to do this, I'm here to support you on this 100%, but my job is not to make sure you get this done. That's your responsibility to do that. And she was, oh,
Oh, that's so good.
she was very good.
Do you know what, though? That is good grounding because when you're an entrepreneur, no one holds you accountable.
No one,
You have to do it yourself. So maybe you needed to go through that process to then start the business you started.
I know for certain, Carmen, it is. So it was probably 2 or 3 years from that time. And anyhow, the day came. I said, "Hon, I think I gotta leave my job and start doing this full time." And that was November 2006. So we're 19 years ago, right? Yeah.
And what an exciting time. And so you left your job to start this. Did you have a period of time where you had to start making money?
Yeah, I had a period of time I had to start making money right away, and
Yeah, okay. They were just not easy.
No, it's not. Like I'll tell people, like, I worked full time and I got paid very part time. Like
Yes, in the
25
business,
I earned
yes.
25% of my income in the first year. Like it
Yes.
like getting into this business of speaking is one of the easiest things you're ever going to do. Like anyone can do it. My day calendar that I have, where you rip off and it's got a cute little saying every day. How to become a keynote speaker. It says, it says, update your LinkedIn profile to say keynote speaker. Step 2, done. Like, right? Low, low bar to entry. But you know what? It's easy to get in. It is hard to stay in. It is like it's a hard way to make an easy living.
Yes. Love that saying. Okay, so you're starting the business November 2006, I
Yes.
think you said,
Yeah.
and you set out to start speaking. That was the core of the
It
business.
was, yeah. It
Yeah.
was
And all about gratitude.
all about that has never changed. And my first client was February. That's when I got my first.
Okay. Yes. Tell us about that.
It was a church. Can you believe it?
Ah,
It was a church. Like
yeah.
I got
Well,
like, and then it was just
the topic works.
and like gratitude is part of what it is. That
Yeah.
was the very first client. And then I just started talking. Well, in November, that's when I started talking to my network about what I did. And gratitude, it wasn't cool in 2006, not the way it is
I can
today.
imagine.
Like today it's almost cool, right?
Yes, there's been a huge mindfulness movement, and the EQ's been huge for years now, and yeah, I think it's a very different world now to what it was back then.
It was. And so I received a lot of wrinkled brows, people looking back at you're an electrical engineer. You're What happened? How did this, like, how did you have, did health scare? Did you travel somewhere? No, I
So,
didn't.
yeah, you're having a crisis.
Yes, my kids, they call it my midlife crisis. So I just started talking to people about it. And then someone hired me. Someone hired me. And my first 10 years, I don't think I did any associations. It was all corporate. And in some ways, I don't know if it hurt me or helped me, because when I went to start doing associations and conferences, my fee was at a level where they were like, where else have you spoken at associations? And I really couldn't point to anything. And so I think it's good to build a balance of corporate. I don't know, but maybe that was just the path I was meant to travel. But today I don't know if it's 50-50, but I do both now, right? But I think it is something that, if you are new in speaking, is to think about getting in conferences and getting in corporate. Like, conferences will get you to corporate. I tended to just go straight to my connections in corporate, and that's how I got my speak.
Yeah, how you started.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. If you were working for General Motors, which is a huge corporate company, and then you would have known others through that.
Yeah.
So I mean, yes, tapping into your network makes complete sense as a start when you're starting out in business. And I think I mean, it's pretty amazing that you got corporates on board with gratitude as a topic back then as
I
well.
know. My first fee was $700.
I was going to ask you that, and I love that it's 700 because I've had quite a few speakers on so far, and 500 has been the golden number.
I don't know
I
why.
just asked for $500, and I thought they were going to tell me no, and then they were just like, "Okay," and you were like, "Oh, I might need to charge more next time."
It just
So tell me about your 700 experience.
it was. I met with someone in my network. He was running a construction company for a family business. And I reached out to him, or maybe he reached out to me because he knew I was doing. He said, "I'd like to come in and talk to the owners about what you're doing." So I did. Told them what I was going to charge, $700. And they looked at me and they said, "Do you mind just stepping out while we talk about this?" So I left the boardroom. I sat outside the boardroom. They invited me back in. Yep, we're going to do this. I mean,
Okay,
probably
wow. Big
10,
decision.
$10 million company to write a
Yeah.
$700. The pizza for the staff cost more than what they paid me. I had no idea. No idea. And I was like
Do you remember how many people were in the group that you were
probably
talking to?
50 or 60.
Yeah. Okay.
I still stay in touch with some of the folks that they still, signed up for my newsletter and still subscribers to it, right? And almost 20 years later.
So good. And love that you did that back then, because when you first start out in business, you don't always think of how can I stay in touch with my audience and my clients. So starting a newsletter all the way back then was a great idea.
It was, and it's evolved a lot, but yes.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. All right. So, do you remember where it grew from there? I'd love to know if your fees are publicly listed, if you're happy to share the progression from $700 up. Because often as a speaker, you think, okay, that was kind of easy. What could I charge next? Do you remember how you started raising your fees?
I think I had one more client at 700, and then I just went to 1,000, and then I went to 2,500. The time it was year 4, I went to 4,000.
Okay.
Okay, and then I waited a long time before I went to 6. Probably 6 years. I seriously thought I would have just stayed at 4,000, went to 6, and 3 years ago went to 7,500, and this year went to 10 grand. So I just, yeah.
Slowly worked it up. And when you started at associations, you mentioned that you'd been only doing corporates and then they were a bit shocked by your fee. Do you remember what your fee was by the time you got to association?
like 6 grand, and like if you haven't done the regional, it's hard to talk to the national, and then some of the regionals go, yeah, that's out of our budget too. So some of the associations that don't have the larger budgets, it's good. I think it's good to get in when you have a fee that matches theirs. And it's not that, like, I could look at association and maybe say, you know what, I want to do something there, and I'm going to be flexible. Can you give me a recording? Can you connect me with someone at the national association? Can you make your payment terms 100% upfront? Whatever it is.
Yes, you
And they're
negotiate.
going to go, absolutely. And then I might say, I want to do it for a different number, right?
Yes, yeah. And I think it is important to ask for something when you are doing something for a different number, because you want a fairly consistent price in the marketplace.
It is, and things like, maybe it's a place that I want to visit. Maybe it's a place I can do something on the other side of, and it's an audience this is really a sweet audience, and I know I'm going to get more than one, more than two. Like, I know that this is going to resonate. So, and
Yes.
I don't know if I don't know the science to it, but I know there's a bunch of different factors. I think the point that you make is somehow having some level of consistency is really important, and not I know no one deal, no one booking is going to make it or break it. No one deal is going to make it or break it for me, and for any of us. Although I want I want to speak it, but that's just not going to happen, right? And
Yes.
so you just kind of, I think, not get so attached to getting a booking, but being persistent and being of service to be able to have the client want to work with you. I think that's really, really important.
Yes. And and do you sell anything else, or is it just your talk you're selling? Do you have training or workshops or
Yeah.
books or any other IP?
Yeah, so I've got a couple keynotes that I do, and then for organizations, for companies, I have a follow-on program where work with the leadership team, all staff doing something there, and then facilitate a process over maybe 6 to 12 months with a group from the organization that wants to embed gratitude in their culture. So I'll just be their remote, like their guide to help them. What are we going to do? How are you going to implement it? I've got a playbook that they can use for them to do it. I've got a book. It's available. Have you heard of Amazon? You have?
Yes, it's
You
surprising.
can get it there.
But I have heard of
You
Amazon.
have, yeah. Most of it. Uh, yeah. So I wrote a book in 2000.
And what's your book
It's
called?
called Surviving to Thriving: The 10 Laws
Hmm.
of Grateful Leadership. So it's a lot of my stories. Some of the
Amazing.
stories I shared with you here today are in there. The
Yes.
whole, wrapped around, okay, what are some of the practical takeaways from this and things that we as leaders can do to show up to be our best selves and the selves that we aspire to be.
Well, for anyone that's listening, jump on Amazon. What I love about Amazon is how fast this is not an Amazon advertisement, but they are very fast at delivering
It is.
products and books.
There is one that I heard, I think Bezos said this. He said, there's two things that are never going to change. People want it cheaper and people want it faster. We're all worrying about what's going to
Mm,
change. He kind of says, what isn't going to change? And I think for us as speakers, think,
yes.
what isn't going to change with our audiences, with the people we're serving, right? Think of, they're going to want more value. They want things that they can implement. Like that is not going to change. Sometimes we worry about all the changes. So how can you take your topic, your subject matter, and make it fit to give more value to your audience and your clients?
Absolutely. It's always about your audience and clients and the value that they're going to get
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
your talk and anything else that you're selling on the back end of that. So tell us about, are you happy to share a couple of golden nuggets, 2 to 3 golden nuggets about gratitude and the benefit for an organization to focus on gratitude within their business? And for the individual, what does it do for the individual?
Yeah. Let's start with the individual. Like people who are grateful. This is science based. Um, more likely to achieve important life goals, right? They're happier, have higher levels of life satisfaction. They're more generous. They sleep more soundly. They exercise more regularly. They have more social connections. Gratitude will insulate you from aging, hopelessness, depression. Like a couple studies point to longevity, longer lives because of being grateful. It boosts your immune system. That's individual. Corporately, organizationally, right? The research in this area has really blossomed over the last 7 years, and we know that in corporate settings, people who are grateful, they have higher levels of motivation. They're more engaged. They're less likely to gossip about their coworkers. That reported by the coworkers who don't even know this is going on. They're less likely to ostracize other people. They're more productive. They are more likely to go the extra mile to serve a customer, a colleague, or somebody else. They have higher levels of internal motivation, right? Not external drive. So these are things that are linked to higher levels of job satisfaction. So a lot of the connections as to how this all works hasn't been sorted out, but I was talking to a researcher from the University of Indiana this morning, and we were kind of sharing stories back and forth. And I said to him, I, I, I don't think we have time to wait until research figures this all out before we got to start going on it. We just got to get going. And he said, absolutely. Like our
Yes.
grandparents did not have any science around this when they taught us to have manners and be thankful and all this stuff, right?
Mm,
So
yes.
is that helpful?
Oh, absolutely. And I 100% believe in what you're saying. And I'm wondering because I've read a couple of different books just about the power of being a positive thinker and being mindful and definitely gratitude falls into that category. Do you think that as human beings we're wired to see the negative and um, and think about what we don't have or what else we want to achieve?
We are totally wired that way. Like we are, I call it the unrelenting force. It is like our mindset, it is constantly trying to bring us down to that idea of surviving to thriving. take us from a thriving mindset where life is a playground to a surviving mindset where life is a battleground. It's constantly doing that, where it's wired into us like 3,000 years ago. Do you know what happened to people that were not focused on the negative?
They would die,
Yeah,
I
they
assume.
were lunch, right? Like in the outback, if you're not focused on the negative, you're going to be lunch.
Yeah. You're
Um,
going to be eaten by someone.
you and
Uh,
you watching or listening, you are not descended from someone who is not hyper focused on the negative. So it's very natural for it to do that. So the practice of gratitude is not going to eliminate the hyper focus on the negative. But when we're so focused on the negative, that's all, it just overpopulates our brain with what we see happening in the world. By introducing and being very intentional with a gratitude practice, you kind of push it down and go, okay, look, okay, there's crap out there, but look at all the good in the world. Look at the good in my life. And you become very intentional. And the more you work at this, it doesn't just happen once and you're done. This is a practice that you want to cultivate and continue to use in your life. Because when you do that, you will start noticing the good amongst chaos. And so chaos can be happening and everyone can feel like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And you can be sitting there going, well, I see this and I have this resource and you're able to deal with it much more calmly. You know, the two big benefits, I think, one, it feels better to be grateful and feel like life is a playground. And the problem is when we go to that survival mindset, we effectively lose the executive function. This is what controls our decision making, critical thinking, creativity, all the things we need when there's chaos. So I think it's just an absolutely critical life skill.
yes. Well, I'm glad you said that because I feel like it is a conscious choice and something you have to catch because, and especially running your own business, as we mentioned earlier, you're in charge of everything, including your own company's culture and mindset. And of course, there are challenges and there are problems that come up. And I find that I have to sort of catch myself and think, okay, so what is going well right now? What have I achieved so far? And let's, really focus on that. And then, as you said, and it does, it cracks open solutions somehow. And I've said to people before that one of the things, because I was in corporate for 18 years, moved my way up the ladder, was in quite senior positions in the end and running big teams. And I had a salary that I got paid very safely every month. And I got bonuses and I got my car supplied and I got my phone supplied and all the things. And then, like yourself, I decided I had to go and do something else. And I had a few months to figure out how to make some money because I had to make sure the income was still coming in to support my family. And so there's definitely been times on the journey, and I'm 7 years in now, and have loved it. But there's been moments where I haven't known how to continue on. It was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through next month? And just going for a walk and clearing my head, and then thinking, I'd always ask myself, do you want to go back? Do you want to stop and just go back to a job? And the answer was always no. I do not want to do that. So it's all right. Well, then we've got to figure out what's next. We've got to figure it out. So I think that clearing and also recognizing, and it was often through other people because I was always so focused on what was next, I wouldn't think about what I'd achieved so far. Because it was always about growing, or achieving the next thing. And I think there'd be a lot of people in corporate, especially people that are very driven, that are always after the next thing, where everyone else thinks externally that they've just got it made, like they've got the most amazing job, they must be getting paid well, they seem to have a great life. But if you're not grateful for what you've achieved and the life that you're living, you can constantly be in that negative force. And it's just not a happy place to be, really, is it? Like, it's just so much nicer for you as an individual when you're focused on what's great.
It absolutely is. That was a very good treatise on gratitude because you know, when challenges happen, it's harder then. There's no question. There are days it's easier to be grateful, and there's some days where it's more difficult to be grateful. And there's some days where you might say, and I might even say, I'm not grateful for today, or whatever the case is, and just you know what? If that happens, don't worry. It's okay. But
Mm.
I think, and you think of your stories over your 7 years, some of the challenges that you've gone through, and if you were to pick one, the biggest challenge that you got through, I mean, the only person that can ask this question is you. You can ask yourself, what was I grateful for about that? Where's the good in the challenge that's a challenge that's behind you?
Mm.
What am
Mm.
I, who did I become? What did I learn? What did I learn about myself? Like, who are like,
Yes.
you just started, and then you can, and then you say, like, when did I actually, can I actually be grateful for that? Like, maybe not the situation,
Yes.
but because of this situation, in this situation, here's what I'm grateful for. And when we do that with a situation in the past, we can take that learning and use it for something that we're dealing with today. And anyone can
Yes.
do that. And
So
it is
true.
a very, very powerful way to reframe how life is unfolding, because crap's going to happen, right?
Mm.
Do you say crap in Australia?
We do.
You do. Okay.
Yes,
So
we know that one.
crap's going to happen regardless, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of, okay, well, how are we going to deal with it? And it totally
Mm.
reframes. And like you said, it feels a whole lot better. It really does. And it doesn't pretend
Yes.
that we're not, that crap isn't there either.
Yeah, absolutely. I always remember one of the big ones was I'm in Melbourne, Australia, and we were one of the most locked down cities in the world during COVID. I was only 18 months into my business, and the first year out, I took on contracts that weren't exactly what I wanted to be doing because they paid me and I could do them and I did a good job. And then I'd made a decision one year in and thought, no, I've done this because I want to help people with public speaking and that's what I'm going to do. And so I was very strict on not taking things outside of that. And I was just starting to get some good clients on board and then we locked down. And of course, to start with, we thought it was only going to be a couple of weeks. So everyone said everything just disappeared from my diary. I'm sure you would have had a very similar experience as a speaker. And then we'll just postpone. Okay. Anyway, turned out we were in lockdown for 2 years. So there was a point at the beginning where there was panic. What have I done? I've gone and started my own business. If I was still in a job, I would have had money to continue to pay for my family and the mortgages and all the things. And um, then there was a new phase where it's like, okay, this is where we are, and what are we going to do? What are we going to do about this? And it was a big journey, but during COVID was when I learned how to do business development virtually, because before then everything I did was in person. I was pounding the pavement, going to all the networking events, all the things. So I learned LinkedIn, which was amazing. And I built online modules and I built this studio that I'm in now and got to start speaking to anyone all over the world. It was an interesting time. Looking back in terms of gratitude, though, I am so grateful that I had that time because I literally had time. There was nowhere we could go. And other than having to homeschool my children, which was definitely challenging, I had time to think and build out the modules and program that I wanted to write. I remember filming it on an iPhone with some ring lights in my house that got delivered because we could not go anywhere. And then later on, I actually got into a real studio when we were open and refilmed it because my children were playing video games in the background and the sound was coming through. It wasn't the most professional version. But how amazing that opened the world up. I started getting clients internationally as well as all over Australia, and being able to service them from the front room of my house, which was a bedroom and became a studio during COVID. So I think you're right that when you look back, sometimes when you're in it, it's really, really hard. And then when you look back, you can find the
You
gratitude.
can. And so I think the lesson here for us, and for each of us here, is to try to find that gratitude as quickly as we possibly can. And it can be, and so if Carmen is able to see it now, like, if Carmen could have seen it Or when do you think you would have been grateful for that? When would you have realized that you were grateful for that whole experience?
I think there were different phases. So once I started gaining clients and realized, oh my goodness, I'm serving people in every state of Australia, it was to start with, all at once in one group program. I don't have to fly anywhere. Like anyone that is passionate about what they do, I wanted to make sure people were getting the value. And there was a belief at the time that you could not teach public speaking virtually. So once people started giving feedback that, oh, wow, this was so valuable, I'm so glad I got to do this, and this is going to be so helpful for me moving forward, more and more gratitude started flowing through there, and being able to support myself and my family through COVID, and actually have a business that was growing. It started growing. Made me feel very grateful. But I think even it was after COVID that I really reflected and thought, if that event hadn't have happened, I would be restricted to only seeing people in person and not having dreamt up this virtual version of what I do.
Yeah, you and I would not be talking today. I don't think.
That's exactly
Right?
right. Yes, yes,
That's
yes, for sure.
wonderful.
I agree.
Thanks for sharing that on your show.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for introducing the topic, Steve, sorry. So let's talk about, we haven't spoken about what's beyond the keynote. And this is a bit of a fun section of the show where you and I just get to dream up something really cool. There is no budget. We can spend whatever we want on this. There's no restrictions. Let's take one of your favorite keynotes. Do you have a title for your favorite keynote?
Yeah, there are two titles depending on which direction we take it. Gratitude at Work, Unlocking Professional Success, so really to help people be more successful, or Gratitude at Work, the superpower to thrive. So building more resilience, just a sense of well-being, and that naturally over the last 2 years, 3 years, people have been asking more for that second. Like, can you take what you do, but just twist it more for well-being and for our staff? So,
Yeah.
so let's do that last one.
Which one would you like? The well-being.
The
Yes.
second one there.
So give us the title again.
Gratitude at Work, the superpower
Yep.
to thrive.
Superpower to thrive.
And this idea of thriving, in my book, Surviving to Thriving, thriving is feeling like life is a playground.
Everyday life is a playground. It's like when you're a child, life is a playground. And before we get taught that we need to behave a certain way and think a certain way, act a certain way, etc. All right, the superpower to thrive. Life is a playground. So tell us about, I've actually watched some of your speaking, and I can see you have some theatrics happening already in one of your videos that I watched. You were sort of reenacting what you were doing as you were telling a story. I think there was a trolley,
Yes.
fake trolley going across the stage, and you were walking, pretending to push a fake trolley. So it's interesting sometimes when people think of adding in a little bit of theatre to your keynote, they think it has to be all the big bells and whistles, like the lighting and the sound and the big theatrics. And of course, you can do that if you're in the right venue. But it can be quite minimalist, and it could just be a little prop, or it could be miming something like you did. That, a standard keynote would be just standing there saying, oh, and then the person pushed the trolley. But you were literally miming pushing the trolley across the stage, which makes it more theatrical, and I think it gives the audience a different experience and really gets them into the story deeper. So maybe thinking about what you're already doing, or are there other things that you're already doing that are a bit theatrical that you want to share with us? And then we can look at what could we do that would take it to another level
Absolutely.
again.
Thanks for that. You know what? This is such a important part of professional speaking. In the acting world, is it the fourth wall you call it?
Yes.
Right. When you go to theater, the audience and the performers know there's the fourth wall.
Yes.
In professional speaking, the speaker knows there's a fourth wall. The audience really doesn't know there's a fourth wall. And so I think adding theatrical elements, which they do need to be rehearsed. You can't just, like, some things you can, like, overall, I think it's so important to have the elements that are going to engage people, because if not, telling stories that are narrative it's almost like Charlie Brown's teacher going wah 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 in the commercial. So I use, and even in the interview here, like Mrs. Hopkins, my grade 11 teacher, when I told that story, I didn't say my teacher said Stephen, it was my turn. I turned into some dialogue, but I just kind of did that because that's not a story I tell. But I know that we are going to lean in and listen. And when I stand on stage, I don't say, thank you, it's great, it's an honor to be here. First thing I say, friend of mine has this guy in his neighborhood. I just, like, when you turn on a movie, do they say, you are going to watch the movie of Forrest Gump? No, it just jumps right into the show. Like, that's how we do it. And I don't
Exactly.
know. It's like very.
And I love that, Steve. And I mean, I teach my clients this as well. And it's one of the hardest things is that just starting, they want to say, good morning, how are you? All of those things. Oh, it's great to be here. And I always say, no, we've got to start with a bang. You've got to jump straight in. So, yes, love that you start straight in the story. Let's bring them back straight in and hook them in.
Story, and I start at the beginning of the story. You know what? I've seen people start at the end or the middle of the story and then come back. Like, you can make it work a bunch of different ways. I think speaking fast when you need to, and then slowing down and just saying something one word at a time. I think that's theatrical. I'm kind of curious your opinion, like mixing vocal, like how do you engage an audience, like by doing things differently? Yes.
Oh, absolutely. And I think some people think that they don't have the instrument to do that, and you do. You've got so much breadth and depth in your voice, and I think when you start seeing it as an instrument and you get to play, which ties into your theme, just being able to play and create this magical world, and then you can discover things that you may not have discovered if you didn't play. And so I think rehearsal is a playground as well for a speaker. You can experiment, you can do things that are not going to work in rehearsal, and then you don't put them in the actual show. And that's okay. Or it might work with some audiences and it's not going to work with other audiences. Because tying it back to something you said earlier, it's always about the client audience that you're speaking to.
It is, and sometimes you don't know that. And I mean, I will try things like, as opposed to I'm going to change I might try and change an element of something. And like when I tell my story, I kind of say, we grew up, we didn't have all the latest toys. We didn't go on fancy vacations. We didn't wear designer clothes. But we never felt like we're doing without. Like, that's part. And then earlier this year, I thought, I got to add something more like I don't know, dramatic into it. So it's like I got to put my mom's voice in there. So in between each of those statements, it would be, and I'd look to the side. Kids, supper's ready. Say another one. Got to be home by the time street lights are on. And just kind of mix it up a little. And that doesn't work with small audience. So I don't use that with small audience. A larger audience, something like that can work with. Because in a smaller audience, I think that's a place where we have to, I still think we need to be larger than who we are, like a little more than who we are. But there's an appropriate level to it as well, too. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, it's more conversational. You got to connect one-on-one in those really small audience spaces. And you want to, when I say, so you want to connect one to every single individual in the audience in a large audience, but it can be more performative.
In a larger audience, you would, yeah, okay, yeah, because I never was. I'm glad you've given me that feedback, because that's really helpful, because I was kind of I've had two small audiences in the last month, and I just felt putting those mum lines in there would be too much for the smaller size, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably, it could work, but I think when you came back out of that dialogue, there'd need to be a direct conversation with the audience or something that sort of brought it back into the space, and the fact that you're just talking to them and having a conversation with them.
One of the things that took me a while to get used to was, when I use dialogue, I don't look into the camera, or I don't look into the, like, I want the audience to feel like they're watching a performance when they're seeing dialogue and using dialogue.
Because that's when the fourth wall goes
Yes.
up, when you're using the dialogue.
And
Yes.
we know that. They don't. They're not aware of. I don't think that some are, but most are not, and they just get drawn into it. And but it can take some time to do that. And then if you've got a couple characters, just remembering, okay, I'm Nick when I'm looking this way, I'm Dad when I'm looking this way, and then I come back later in the story remembering, okay, Dad's looking this way and Nick's talking, like, that can be only through rehearsal you're going to get that. And the exact words that I say might not be identical, because
Yes.
I think you can still be well rehearsed and be in the moment at the same time, because that's what your audience needs. They don't want you to feel like it's just.
Yes, definitely. And that's what a good actor does. And look, actors do have to learn lines, which is actually harder because you have to make those lines feel for the audience like you're saying it for the first time, like you've just had that thought, and that's what you're saying, and then it never feels like they're saying dialogue because they are so in character and so in the moment. And when you do have to learn dialogue, you have to know it so well that it can come out like that it can come out fresh and feeling like you've just had that thought with the audience. Uh, and I think that is a skill that actors have that not everybody has. So it is easier to not script every single word as a speaker, but have your key thoughts, and then I think you actually memorize it out loud. This is what I often say to clients too. It's easier in the end if you've learnt it out loud rather than having it all written out on a page, because often people sound like they're reciting something when they don't have that acting skill when they've written it all out on a page.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to write for the ears, not the eyes. Like, even my blog, when I write a blog, I write for the ears, not the eyes. As speak it out. And how does that sound? Would I say it that way? If I'm not going to say it that way, I don't want it written that way.
Yeah, because we often write much more
We
formally
do.
than
Yeah.
how we
Yeah.
speak. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And that's the crux of it, isn't it? The audience wants to feel like you're really there, really talking to them, having this two-way conversation, even when the audience doesn't have the chance to actually verbally respond. There is this two-way connection that's happening if you're a good speaker and you're invoking thought in the people in the audience, which you absolutely want to do. And love that you've got these theatrics already, and that you've got set sides that you speak to when you're speaking about different characters or bringing different characters in. Absolutely love that. Um, Now, let's just say that we have the most amazing, huge theatre for you to deliver your show in. And we could add, so there's moments, as you said, where you're speaking really fast and the energy is really high, and then you shift and you're doing that one word at a time that you were talking about. Adding in some lighting, so dark and light, spotlights, and a big warm wash of lighting, as well as some sound, can add to the emotion that the audience is feeling. We could have a score running underneath your keynote, that and moments of silence in between moments of music that makes sense for what you're saying. That could be really cool, Steve.
I totally agree with you. Music has a way of just stirring the soul in just
Yes.
so powerful ways. I agree. Yeah.
Mm. Have you ever played with any of those sorts of
I have
elements?
not once. Like I
Yeah.
will, I talk to the AV team because like when I'm doing a keynote, whether people are at tables or they're theater style, because I'm going to get journals in hands, we're going to get them do a reflection. I will ask the AV to, can you find some, you know, calm, like instrumental that we're going to play. There's a couple times when that I'll invite them just to do that because that
Mm.
it helps set the tone and it discourages people from talking. That's because it kind of says, okay, we're supposed to be quiet
True.
now. And it could, for someone who doesn't
Yes.
want to participate, and I don't want to force anyone to participate, but if you're not going to participate,
Mm.
don't distract someone else. That's
Yes.
a strategy around that.
100%.
Um,
And I think it keeps a nice energy in the room as well, rather than just that stark silence where everyone's supposed to think and write something down. I agree. I know I often play music. Sometimes it's upbeat music, depending on the exercise that I've asked them to do. But generally, if you want people to think and reflect, it's better to have music that doesn't have lyrics, because the people in the audience like me that need to sing to everything are finding it hard to think at that point of time because they're distracted by the lyrics.
So do you work with speakers who like say they're working with a client that does have the ability to do some lighting and some different effects? Because not all, I know not all events or
Not all
venues
venues, yes.
have that
We
ability,
normally have to scale.
right?
I call it their show, their keynote show. We normally have to scale it because you're right. There's not there are not a lot of venues where you can do it. That's the big speaking venues. And one of my clients that I'm working with at the moment has actually chosen to open her show in a theatre where she's inviting the audience
Oh,
in.
beautiful.
Yeah, which I mean, that's a very fun project of mine at the moment because I get to go crazy in terms of what we can create for her. But a lot of the time, it is doing some of the things you've spoken about, where you're bringing theatrical elements in, but you don't need the lighting. Sound is easier to bring in than lighting because you can obviously have that even running through PowerPoint. But yes, lighting is the cream on top when you have the right venue. Steve, it has been so amazing talking to you. We've had a huge and very interesting conversation. Is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with before we finish up? And of course, just remind us again how to get in touch with you if someone's wanting to book you for a speaking gig, and of course your book that we can buy on Amazon.
Yeah, okay. So a couple things like speaking and the mastery of speaking is a journey. It's not a destination. It's a place where it's always good to have a community of people that are able to support you. So that is really important as you continue to grow as a speaker. That's number one. Number two, I would encourage you to start a gratitude practice. Like I'm going to put a plug in.
Yes.
Like just
Do you have a gratitude journal or anything?
yeah, I do. And I do sell them on my website, but that's not, I give these away at every event. So everyone gets a journal. I sell them on my website. I don't, this isn't how I pay my bills by selling these in the journal.
No,
Probably costs me
I'm
more
sure
to,
it's not.
to ship them to you.
Yeah.
But get, start a practice of making a list of what you're grateful for and find a way to get a reminder or a nudge so that you don't forget it because life's going to happen
Mm,
and it'll go sideways. And if you're
yes.
interested in me or anything around gratitude, or you want to just wonder for yourself, anything you can do, gratitudeatwork.ca. That's my website. You can
Mhm.
find me there. I'm on LinkedIn at Steve Foran. I'm not on any other social. You can get me there. And my book is on Amazon. That's Surviving to Thriving 10 Laws of Grateful Leadership. And Carmen, thank you very much for having me here today and for the work that you're doing in supporting and elevating speakers because there is no curriculum. There's no, like, you don't learn this anywhere, right? There's hard not, you're going to learn it from your own experience and the mistakes you make. Do that. But if you can learn from
Yes,
someone else's mistakes, that is going to speed you, right? So thank you for the work that you're doing in
absolutely.
supporting speakers too.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, Steve. And thanks for the work you're doing in supporting people with gratitude, because it certainly does make a huge difference to your life. All right, that is it for our episode today. Thank you for listening and look forward to connecting with you again next time.
All right, here's where you're standing. You can close this episode, think that was fun, and go back to doing things the way you've always done them. Or you can decide you're done being the speaker, the leader that people politely applaud and immediately forget. If you want to create the kind of moments we talked about today, the theatrical, the unforgettable, the profitable, I've put together something that'll change how you think about the stage forever. It's called Beyond the Keynote, Creating Your Illuminated Story. No fluff, no theory, just methodology I use with elite speakers and leaders who are done playing small. Go to illuminatedstory.com/masterclass. And hey, if this episode hit you somewhere, share it, leave a review. It takes 30 seconds and helps more people discover that great speaking isn't magic. It's a game, and you can learn to win it. I'm Carmen Sederino. Don't just speak, illuminate. See you next week.